Okay, this is an introduction to the course ELM258, Mechatronics Systems. So first question, what is mechatronics and why are we studying it? Why do we need to learn about it? The first answer is partly answered by this graphic that you see on the screen. So this represents a couple of things. One, on the outside of this circle shows all the different various types of industries that you find mechatronics, and basically it's just about everywhere. You know, it's in automotive systems, it's in aerospace systems, medical technology, xerography, defense, so consumer products. We're going to see some examples of those. And then on the inside of this graphic, you see the different technologies that make up this thing we call mechatronics. So mechatronics is really a hybrid of multiple different technologies. Generally, it involves some kind of mechanical moving parts, like motors, drives, things moving back and forth, and then electronics to drive those moving parts, also electronics to sense the motion or position of the mechanical systems. And all that gets connected back to some kind of a controller. So we have control systems like a programmable logic controller or a microcontroller. Those are different types of control systems that can be programmed to do very sophisticated sequences and processes. And then tying this all together is the world of computers and networking and digital control systems. And part of that would actually be the mechanical CAD systems that are used to design the mechanical parts of mechatronics. So it's this very complete kind of loop of technologies. The second question, why should we study it and why do we need to learn about it? Well, the basic reason is that you want to be able to learn skills that you can go out into the job market and market those skills. Because this mechatronics is everywhere, these controlled systems in manufacturing, in product development, in all kinds of systems, the skills for being able to work with a system like this, being able to troubleshoot, build, test, all the things you need to make a system work, those skills are in high demand. So, you know, generally positions in mechatronics are listed as electronics, because that's a more typical, more well-known term, but really a lot of it is talking about mechatronics. Okay. So let's talk about specifically mechatronics in automated manufacturing. So in this course, we're going to be doing a lot with this system called the HAS 200, Highly Automated System 200, and it's actually a manufacturing system in the lab. So we're going to focus on manufacturing, but just remember that a lot of these technologies are transferable to many different areas. So in mechatronics, you've got a high number of integrated technologies. So we see programmable logic controllers used extensively in systems. Embedded microcontrollers can be used either instead of PLCs or in some cases in combination with PLCs. Microcontrollers have certain advantages and PLCs have other advantages. Sensors are huge. They're everywhere. They're sensing light and position and little magnetic sensors and temperature sensors. So there's a tremendous number of sensors involved. Electro-pneumatics, that refers to, so pneumatics is the use of compressed air to deliver energy to a given actuator to make it move out or pull in. And electropneumatics means that the valves that are flowing the air in or out to control the movement is controlled electrically. So electropneumatics are heavily used. Any kind of motion is controlled by motors and drives to drive the motors, electric motors. The various mechanical components like belts and pulleys and gears, that sort of thing. Lead screws. Okay, so here's the list. Gears, mechanical components would include gears, conveyors, belts and pulleys, lead screws. Those are all things that are designed to have to enable a motor that's a rotational device to either rotate something else more quickly or to move something along a plane like a conveyor, or to translate rotational motion into straight motion, belts, pulleys, that sort of thing, lead screws. Okay, so you're going to see examples of mechatronic systems in everyday items. So I pulled out a few examples with diagrams just to give you a sense of how omnipresent these systems are in our lives. So we're going to look at a diagram of an inkjet printer, a computer hard drive, although those are actually becoming slowly becoming obsolete and being replaced with solid state flash drives. But anyway, we'll look at that anyway. Vending machine, washing machine, clothes dryer, and Roomba vacuum cleaner. It's a automated vacuum system some people have. And the last one we're going to look at is a quadrotor, otherwise known as a drone. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is a block diagram of an inkjet printer. So on an inkjet printer, you have to have some kind of a way of moving the paper through the printer. That would be a paper feed motor. And also a way of moving the ink head back and forth across the page. And in addition to that, you've got the printer head, which actually dispenses the ink, the different colors of ink to create the image. So those are the mechanical moving parts that you can actually hear as you print. You can hear them whirring along. Now, driving those are electronics. So these motor drivers that you see here would be electronics, and the print head driver. Now, that's all going back to this, I think MCU stands for microcontroller unit. That's just a guess, but anyway, some kind of a controller that's controlling the process. And then you've got a bunch of other sort of accessory things like a sensor to tell you if there's paper or not, sensor for the position of the carriage. So there's your sensors. There's also some image processing. Usually these systems have a little touch screen for the user to operate the system. And then some different connections, Ethernet connection, USB for connecting to your computer. And then down here is just simply a power supply. It's SMPS. You're going to be talking about this later in the course. It's an acronym for switched mode power supply. That's generally a general type of power supply that's very efficient. Okay, so there's an inkjet printer, mechanical parts, electronic control, programmable controller of some sort driving the whole thing, and sensors as well. All right, so let's look at a computer hard drive. This is not quite as detailed. Let me just see if I have a slide. Yeah, there's a slide for it. So the basic parts of a computer hard drive are a spinning disk, which has a magnetized surface that literally just through magnetism, the ones and zeros are stored as little magnetic areas on the disk. And there's a little magnetic head that reads the disk, and that has to be moved back and forth while the disk is spinning so that it can cover any part of the disk. So there's an actuator to move that head back and forth, and there's a spindle to spin the motor. And then this doesn't show a lot of details, but there are probably some sensors in there. And then there's a control back here and a power connector. So the block diagram on that, we can see the two motors that are controlled here and the motor controller electronics back here. There's also some signal amplification. The magnetic read head produces a very tiny little signal to pick up those ones and zeros, and also to write new ones and zeros on the disk. And so that preamp is there to amplify that and eventually convert that into useful digital information. And then you've got some interfaces to bring it out to the main computer onto the motherboard. So again, it's another example of a mechatronic system. Okay, a vending machine. This one, again, it's a very, very rough block diagram, but you see you've got some different things that have to happen. We need to be able to put so it shows the, yeah, there's a cup. This is dispenser to allow a cup to fall down into the little slot, and then we need a way of dispensing water into that cup. So those are that's a set of solenoid valves that do that. One of them allows the cup to drop down. Another one allows the water to flow in. There's a heating coil associated with the water, so there's some temperature control there. Then there's solenoids depending on what type of thing is ordered. Coffee powder, tea powder, milk powder, and then of course the user's display. So moving parts, electronic control, programmable control in the middle of everything, and a user interface. And there it is. That's another Mechatronic system.